ESPN host and reporter Maria Taylor now joins us. Maria, really appreciate the time. We're through the first weekend, 16 remain, but which team was most impressive to you through the first two rounds?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Sorry for the music, you know what I mean? I'm still dancing because we're in the middle of the NCAA tournament. But, you know, a lot of teams definitely impressed me. I loved the way that Notre Dame played every single game that they had because they never lost their identity. So we know that they averaged 20 assists per game, and they played their offense flawlessly. I loved Arike and her performance, 23 points in the second round. I loved the way that they were just kind of playing together, and you just saw a little bit of everything from when Jess Shepard needed to show up, she did. When Jackie Young needed to be an X factor, she was. I also was really impressed by Missouri State, obviously, because they are our one double-digit seed to advance, and they showed no fear, had to go on the road basically at Iowa State and get that win, and I was so impressed by them throughout the game against the Cyclones.
Notre Dame meets Texas A&M in the Sweet 16. Notre Dame seems to be playing as well as any team in the country right now, as you talked about, but how big of a challenge do you think Texas A&M poses to the Irish?
Texas A&M is a team who, if you haven't watched them play, then you're missing out because they have a player named Kennedy Carter who is impressive. I mean, every time the NCAA tournament comes around, she's the one who comes up with the big steal, remember, to get the win against Marquette. It was a season ago that she had the buzzer-beating three that got a victory for Texas A&M at home in College Station. And she just scores out of her mind. But what's more impressive about Texas A&M right now is the fact that, remember, Kennedy Carter wasn't able to play at all during the SEC tournament, so she had more players stepping up around her. And now those players have this incredible confidence. They're even more balanced than before. So we get to watch Arike and Kennedy, two stars. It might be a little bit of a shootout in the Sweet 16.
Kennedy Carter, one of those elite players still remaining in the tournament, but who do you think has consistently had the biggest impact for their team?
You mentioned it, star power, right? So we're going to look at players like Megan Gustafson, the National Player of the Year. Do you have a go-to player when everything else is breaking down because you're playing a really good team that is a closer that can finish, that despite the fact that everyone knows the ball is going to her, she's still going to be able to score or defend or whatever the case may be? Look at teams like Baylor. We all know the ball's going to Kalani Brown or it's going to Lauren Cox, but they're still going to score in double figures. And as long as that's happening, then I feel as though that they're going to have success. And I think also look at teams that have some balance where, yes, they have the star that's a closer, but you look at Notre Dame, and like I said, we have all of their starters average in double figures. You know what I mean? You look at Baylor, and not only do they have Kalani and Lauren, but they've got Juicy Landrum, who, you know, you saw she was hitting big threes to end quarters, and they've got Chloe Jackson, who's out here getting steals and scoring in double figures. So I think balance comes as a key as you get further and further in the tournament. And then I do believe that star power is going to come in handy down the stretch because you're going to get that one player that's capable of taking a game over. And as we saw last year in the Final Four, finishing a game with heroic play and closing it out.
You experienced the tournament as a player at Georgia. Is it that balance? Is it that star power? What separates teams that advance in this tournament?
The difference is the team that's peaking at the right time. Listen, you can have all the talent in the world and not make it through the NCAA tournament because you have to be bonded. Everyone has to know exactly what their role is, and there shouldn't be any questions about that because you're going to be having to turn over scouting reports on a dime. You're going to be sleeping in different rooms that you're not used to being in and being in Portland instead of, you know, Starkville, Mississippi for Mississippi State. So there can't be any questions surrounding, you know, the strategy or the system that's already in place. You have to be trusting in your system and very confident. And you have to be peaking right now. Like, it doesn't matter what happened the first 5 games of the season. It doesn't matter if you had the best start in program history. It's all about how you are playing in March, and you have to have the right people playing well during that time.
We'll leave you with this. We've seen the preparation process of the players and coaches, but what's your day-to-day process like hosting the studio coverage for ESPN?
If you were in the studio with us, you would wonder, why are we killing so many trees? We are constantly getting paper, whether it's box scores or recaps. We have a stack of note cards. We have great researchers, and Marissa Dowling is heading up our research, and they're constantly giving us, you know, this is the first time that an 11 seed has advanced since XYZ, you know, this is the lowest field goal percentage maybe UConn or someone has had in a quarter since XYZ, and Kennedy Carter is the highest scoring sophomore or whatever in the tournament. So we're constantly getting these awesome notes, and I have a big, huge binder. I feel like I'm back in middle school, but maybe like a 4-inch 3-ring binder that has every single school, their pronunciation guide, their season stats, and then I'm also adding to that recaps and some information of my own. When we did the selection show, I went through every single school, went to every single school's website, and had 2 or 3 nuggets on every single one in case we wanted to reference them throughout the show, and just knew what I was talking about. And then as it obviously gets smaller and smaller, so I'm happy we're in the Sweet 16 now that I have less teams to worry about, And think about it, we've had a Kiara Leslie, a Kiara Lewis, and you're constantly trying to remember names. There was a Paisley Johnson, and I'm just remembering the names that come to the top of my head. But a lot of the preparation for us has to do with making sure we're getting everyone's name right and really being honest and telling the story of these teams, because this is the time of the season that you want these young ladies to feel special because they've done something special. And I want to make sure that we are on point as much as possible throughout that process, as much as we can be. We're not perfect. It's never going to be 100%. But I know that every single student athlete deserves that.
Maria Taylor, ESPN studio host for the women's basketball tournament. Maria, really appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me.